Each fall, the Regis boys would receive an academic schedule for the new school year. At the time, the academic year was split into 2 semesters with 3 monthly marking periods in each semester.
They had bells, and like we use bells more sparingly now. The length of the day was not that dissimilar to what we have today, some around 8 to about 3. So that wasn't that different.
Rules on attendance and punctuality were very strict. Boys would have 2 points deducted from their end-of-month grade for each unexcused absence. Enforcement of the rules could be quite unforgiving. Commuting delays were generally not considered adequate excuses, which perhaps explains why the boys were willing to pull the emergency stop cord on the L train if the conductor decided to skip the 84th Street station.
Generally, when you arrived, your experience was you stayed in the same classroom all day. It was your teachers that moved.
The ordinary daily schedule was we came in, the bell rang at 5 minutes to 9, we came up to our classes, we sat in our assigned seat, we had the first period, 2-minute break, second period, the teachers came to us, recess, after 15 minutes or so, recess, the bell rang, we went back up for the third and fourth periods, again the teachers came to us, bell rang, we went down for lunch, everybody had lunch at the same time, when lunch ended, every period was 45 minutes long. We went back upstairs for the fifth and sixth periods, and then at 2:42 the bell rang, and that was the end of the school day. And people went home or went to extracurricular activities, or indeed the sort of things that people do now, go off for track practice or the like.
There were now, as we now talk about unstructured mods or things like that. No, that would have been, there was not a whole lot of free time given to students.
Religious obligations were also a more regular part of the schedule.
Every Friday, the entire school went to Mass at St. Ignatius. So there was no choice. Like we have weekday Mass there, small number of people come. The entire school went every week. Every Thursday, the whole day stopped in the morning for 30 minutes or so. And if your student wanted to go to confession, there were Jesuits available across the street in the church. Now when it was forced to go, so there was a tremendous emphasis on spirituality and religion.
And while confessions were not mandatory, the administration did take note of attendance.
He skipped out more than 1 week. He skipped out like a whole semester. He thought he was outsmarting folks. And so at one point his father said to him, so I see you've done pretty well, except what happened here? Oops, I think that he went to confession after that semester. It was kind of a humorous thing. His dad was a little, he was understanding, but at the same time said, okay.
There was much less tolerance for talking in public, things like that. If they were in church, there was never any talking. If you were in St. Ignatius Church, the whole school there, and I did hear stories about students who were pretty severely disciplined for speaking, and not even necessarily during Mass, because of the idea of how important it was to be respectful in a place like that.
Of course, personal discipline was a hallmark Regis sought to establish.
The dean of discipline, and there was Jug, and everything from sitting in a room quietly or doing sort of mindless, repetitive work, copying out something, some sort of punishment when kids had done, what we would probably consider relatively minor infractions. And the discipline was pretty tight. A dress code, tie and jacket.
Regis students in those black and white yearbooks always seemed impeccably dressed, though in reality, it must have been quite uncomfortable when the weather was warmer.
It was coat and tie, and then in the late 60s, it was effectively abolished. There was no dress code, which made things very complicated. And then very quickly, within a few years, it was pulled back. And by the 80s, this sort of more moderate stance of what we would now call business casual, that was put into place. So that's been around 40 years now, plus 40 years. With some tweaks here and there, but it pretty much went from one extreme, quite formal, to anything goes, by the early 70s, and then it was pulled back.